Hi everyone, it's Amy Caroline again. Welcome back to a brand new video. Welcome back to my channel. So it is time for some ghost train stories and ghost train legends from my ghost train book, and hopefully Ghost Train will be on the Travel Channel one day and the History Channel one day too. So it is time for some ghost train stories and ghost train legends. So the first story that I'll be reading is Ghost Train of Dalton, Georgia, Ghost Train of Dalton, Georgia. Anyway, Ghost Train of Dalton, Georgia. So, please enjoy this. And here we go, folks. Ghost Train of Dalton, Georgia. Here we go. This accent ghost story comes from an old railroad magazine and apparently caused a great deal of discussion among Western and Atlantic Railroad workers during 1881, the Western and Atlantic Railroad scene of the famous locomotive chase between the General and the Texas during the Civil War, is now part of CSX. A mistress apparition was seen one night recently. The narrator was walking the track of the Western and Atlantic Railroad about 2 miles from Dalton, Georgia, when he discovered the headlight of a locomotive approaching around a curve. Strange to say, he heard no noise as the train came speedily on. Presently, he stepped from the track and waited for it to pass. No noise attended the engine's approach. As she came opposite, he noticed that the whole machinery had a ghostly phantom-like appearance. At the throttle stood a pale, white-eyed engineer, while a specter-like fireman was pulling the bell rope, but no sound came from the bell. All this he observed as the train rushed past him like a shadow. It is interesting that this ghost train appeared along the route of the great locomotive chase. Maybe the Western and Atlantic ghost train was a folklore echo or a physic echo of that tragedy, heroic and emotional Civil War drama. So, according to this story, a narrator, the narrator was walking the track of the, Western and Atlantic Railroad about 2 miles from Dalton when he discovered the headlight of a locomotive approaching around a curve. So when he was walking the train track, that's when he saw the apparition of the train approaching the station and approaching the area. Anyway, that's what happened. And at the throttle stood a pale, white-eyed engineer, while a specter-like fireman was pulling the bell rope, but no sound came from the bell. All this he observed as the train rushed past him like a shadow. According to that story, that's all that happened. When the narrator was walking the track, he encountered the locomotive and saw the apparition of the train. Ghost Train of Dalton, Georgia. Is a interesting story to me, and Atlantic workers during 1881, and among Western and Atlantic railroaders workers during 1881. Railroad scene of the famous locomotive chase between the General and the Texas during the Civil War is now part of CSX. So that's what happened. Anyway, now the next story I'll be reading, the next story that I'll be reading right here is now the next story that I'll be reading is Ghost Train of Marshall Pass. Ghost Train of Marshall Pass. So without further ado, Ghost Train of Marshall Pass. Here we go. Ghost Train of Marshall Pass. The old narrow gauge Denver and Rio Grande main line over Marshall Pass is gone now. Many years ago, it was the scene of one of America's most famous ghost train incidents. Back when the Marshall Pass line was only a few years old, a passenger train was climbing to the 12,000-foot summit. The engineer got a signal on the cab gong to stop and ground the train to a halt. Just as he stopped, he heard a whistle somewhere behind. To a halt. Just as he stopped, he heard a whistle somewhere behind. Soon the conductor came running up and demanded to know why the train was stopped. He hadn't give any signal. He said the engineer had started on his run, feeling uneasy for no particular reason, and this incident really jittered him. He had to meet train number 19, and another was following him close, so he was in a dangerous situation. By the time he got his train moving, he heard a whistle again, looked back, and saw with horror that a train was speeding behind him, going much faster than he was. A collision seemed inevitable. The now frightened engineer pulled the throttle wide open, and his engine plunged forward like a frightened rabbit. His train rocketed through clogged snow sheds and across rough track in danger of plunging off the rails at any minute. The engineer kept the throttle open though, because the train behind was catching up. The firemen and most of the passengers saw the train following. A wild rumor swept through the coaches that the second train was being run by a crazy engineer. Determined to collide with their train, the engineer reached the summit of Marshall Pass and muttered a prayer under his breath. He looked back and the following train was still there. It was close enough now that he could make out details. The engine's driver were bigger, bigger than the ones on his engine. And a man stood on top of one of the cars waving frantically. A sharp curve approached, and the engineer looked back again. The following train was just a couple of 100 yards away. Then the engineer saw something that chilled him through and through as his train reached in the middle of the curve. He could see the engineer of the following train clearly. The man was leaning out of his cab laughing. His face was white like the face of a corpse. Snow began falling and still the chase was on. The engineer reached a bridge with a low speed limit, but he didn't dare slow down. He rocketed across the bridge, and still the second train followed him, seeming to gain on his train foot by foot. Now the engineer could see the switch lamp marking the sliding where he had orders to meet number 19. The engineer's blood ran cold when he saw number 19, and was not waiting in the siding. Now he might be rammed from ahead as well as behind. Just past the switch, he saw a red light waving across the track. The railroaders signal for danger ahead. Without even thinking about it, the engineer reserved the engine and threw on the brakes. He began to pray again and expected any minute to feel the jolt of the pursuing train ran his killing. Who knows how many passengers back in the coaches. He waited for a second and, feeling no crash, looked back. He saw the pursuing train yards away. Suddenly, just before the pursuing train crashed into his, the tracks seemed to spread. The engine rolled over the side of the mountain, and the entire train rolled into the canyon. The engineer listened for the sound of the crash at the bottom, but all he could hear was the whistle of the wind. The engineer had more surprises in store that night. Looking at the track ahead, he saw the caution signal and had also vanished. It wasn't number 19. After all, the opposing train must still be ahead of him. The engineer got his train into the next siding before number 19 passed by. He finished his run to Green River, and here's perhaps the strangest part of the tale. As he got ready to leave the engine, he found a message traced in front on his cab window. A freight train was wrecked. As you saw, it said, "Now you saw it. You will never make another run." The engine was not under control, and for section men were killed. "If you ever run on this road again, you will be wrecked," this mystery was too much for the engineer. He quit the Denver and Rio Grande that day and got a job with the Union Pacific. Workmen went out the next day but found no train wrecked in the canyon. The phantom train of Marshall Pass was never seen again. So, anyway, the ghost train of Marshall Pass was never seen again after that. According to the story, the train of Marshall Pass was never seen again, and right here, right along in this area, train number 19, now the engineer could see the switch lamp marking the siding where he had orders to meet number 19. The engineer's blood ran cold when he saw number 19 was not waiting in the siding. Now he might be rammed from ahead as well as behind. Just past the switch, he saw a red waving across the track, the railroader's signal for danger ahead. So a sharp curve approached the engineer. A sharp curve approached, and the engineer looked back again. The following train was just a couple of 100 yards away. Then the engineer saw something that chilled him through and through. As his train reached in the middle of the curve, he could see the engineer of the following train clearly. The man was leaning out of his cab, laughing. His face was white like the face of a corpse. And up here, the firemen and most of the passengers saw the train following. A wild rumor swept through the coaches that the second train was being run by a crazy engineer determined to collide with their train. The engineer reached the summit of Marshall Pass and muttered a prayer under his breath. He looked back at, and the following train was still there. He was close enough now that he could make out details. The engine's drivers were bigger than the ones on his engine. And a man stood on top of the cars waving frantically. So yeah, the ghost train of Marshall Pass was never seen again after that. It was seen for a long time, but then after that, it was never seen again. After this mystery was too much for the engineer, he quit the Denver and Rio Grande that day and got a job with the Union Pacific. Workmen went out the next day but found no train wrecked in the canyon. The phantom train of Marshall Pass was never seen again. And somebody found a message traced in the frost on his cab window. A freight train was wrecked as you saw it, said, now that you saw it, you will never make another run. The engine was not under control, and 4 section men were killed. If you ever run on this road again, you will be wrecked. So yeah. That's what the message said. That's what the message said. That's what it said. That's what the message said. That's what it said. That's what it said. That's what it said. So yeah. That is the story of Ghost Train of Marshall Past. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed those stories. 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 I gotta mail this book to a friend of mine, and he's gotta sign it. He's gotta sign it. So I got to let him borrow it tomorrow. But I'll be back with some more Ghost Train stories after he does that. Okay, but I'll be back for some more Ghost Train stories later on. And I hope Ghost Train of Marshall Pass and Ghost Train of Dalton, Georgia will be on the Travel Channel and the Discovery Channel and the History Channel one day, I hope it will, and I hope Ghost Train itself will be a documentary on the Travel Channel and the History Channel one day too. I hope it will, and stuff like that, and hopefully one day Ghost Train will appear on the Travel Channel, and hopefully Ghost Train will appear on the History Channel also, and it will appear on TV, okay? And hopefully the book writer, Tony Reevy, who is famous for writing this book, hopefully Tony Reevy, who is famous for writing this book, hopefully he can write some more Ghost Train books and let all of these stories appear on the Travel Channel and the History Channel one day too, as season episodes, okay? So please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifying of haunted travels and ghost hunting and amateur ghost hunting, and I will see you guys later on for my next Ghost Train stories after this book is signed, okay? And happy haunted travels to you guys, and happy haunted travels to you guys, and happy ghost watching, and happy ghost hunting, okay? Bye, and happy ghost hunting also, okay? Bye, everybody. Bye.